Imagine you're standing on a Warsaw street corner in 1940. Nazi soldiers are conducting a roundup, loading civilians onto trucks bound for concentration camps. Most people are running, hiding, desperately trying to avoid capture. But one man, Polish cavalry officer Witold Pilecki, is doing the exact opposite. He's deliberately walking toward the soldiers, ensuring he gets arrested, voluntarily heading to what everyone knows is almost certain death. Why? Because someone needed to get inside Auschwitz and tell the world what was really happening there. Hey, I'm Michael, and welcome to Hoodie History, where I explore the fascinating and incredible stories of our past. It's great to have you here. Today I'm exploring one of World War II's most extraordinary acts of courage, the story of Witold Pilecki, the man who voluntarily got himself sent to Auschwitz, organized a resistance network inside the camp, and became the first person to alert the Allies about the true horrors of the Holocaust. This isn't just a story about wartime heroism, it's about one man's decision that someone had to bear witness, no matter the cost. This story begins back at the beginning of World War II in 1939 when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Within weeks, the country was carved up between Hitler and Stalin, and the Polish state ceased to exist. But the Polish people, they didn't give up. Underground resistance networks formed almost immediately, and among their leaders was Witold Pilecki, a 39-year-old cavalry officer, landowner, and father of two. Pilecki had already proven his courage in Poland's 1920 war against Soviet Russia, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to undertake. By 1940, disturbing rumors were reaching the Polish underground about places called concentration camps. The Nazis claimed these were work camps, but fragments of information suggested something far more sinister. The problem was that no one knew exactly what was happening inside, and without concrete evidence, it was nearly impossible to convince the outside world to act. That's when Pilecki proposed something that seemed like suicide, deliberately getting arrested and sent to the most notorious camp of all, Auschwitz. On September 19, 1940, Pilecki put his plan into action. He had learned that the Germans were conducting a street roundup in Warsaw's Żoliborz district, so he positioned himself right in their path. Using false identity papers under the name Tomasz Serafiński, he ensured he'd be caught in the sweep. The scale of this decision becomes clear when you consider that while everyone else was desperately trying to avoid Nazi attention, Pilecki was essentially raising his hand and volunteering for what most people considered a death sentence. It's like voluntarily walking into a lion's den, except the lions are systematically murdering people, and you're going in without weapons, backup, or any guarantee you'll ever get out. But the plan worked. Pilecki was arrested along with thousands of other Poles and loaded onto cattle cars. After 2 days of horrific transport conditions, they arrived at a place that would redefine human cruelty, Auschwitz concentration camp. Pilecki became prisoner number 4,859. What he found there was worse than anyone had imagined. Auschwitz in 1940 was still primarily a camp for Polish political prisoners, but it was already a place of systematic brutality, starvation, and murder. Prisoners were worked to death, beaten for the smallest infractions, and subjected to medical experiments. The mortality rate was staggering. Most prisoners died within months. But Pilecki wasn't just trying to survive, he was on a mission. Within weeks, he began secretly recruiting other prisoners, carefully identifying those who could be trusted. He organized them into small cells of 5 prisoners each, using techniques he'd learned in the underground resistance. This network, which came to be known as the Union of Military Organizations, had multiple objectives: boost prisoner morale, organize sabotage when possible, gather intelligence, and, most crucially, smuggle out reports about what was really happening in the camp. The risks were enormous. Getting caught meant immediate execution, often preceded by torture. But Pilecki and his network pressed on, because they understood something the outside world didn't yet grasp. Auschwitz wasn't just a prison camp. It was becoming the epicenter of industrialized genocide. By 1942, Pilecki witnessed the camp's transformation. The Nazis began using Auschwitz-Birkenau as their primary killing center for European Jews. He watched as train after train arrived, carrying families who were told they were being resettled, but were actually being led directly to gas chambers. Pilecki saw it all: the systematic deception, the mass murders, the burning of bodies, and he made sure the world would know. Getting information out of Auschwitz required incredible ingenuity and courage. Pilecki's network used multiple methods: messages hidden in packages sent by Polish families, coded letters, and, most dangerously, reports carried by prisoners who managed to escape or were released. These reports, known today as Pilecki's reports, were among the first detailed accounts of the Holocaust to reach the outside world. They described not just the conditions in Auschwitz, but the systematic nature of what was happening, that this wasn't random violence, but a coordinated plan to exterminate entire populations. The reports made their way through the Polish underground to the Polish government in exile in London, and from there to British and American officials. By 1942, Pilecki's intelligence was reaching the highest levels of Allied leadership. But here's the tragic part: despite having detailed first-hand accounts of genocide from inside Auschwitz, the Allied response was limited. Some officials found the reports hard to believe because the scale of the atrocity seemed impossible. Others knew but felt military priorities had to come first. The systematic murder of millions continued while the world largely watched. Pilecki must have felt the crushing weight of witnessing history's greatest crime while being unable to stop it. But he kept documenting, kept reporting, kept hoping that eventually someone would act. By 1943, Pilecki realized he could accomplish more outside the camp than inside. So on April 27, 1943, after nearly 3 years in Auschwitz, he executed a carefully planned escape with 2 other prisoners. Breaking out of Auschwitz was considered nearly impossible. The camp was surrounded by electrified fences, guard towers, and patrols. But Pilecki's group had identified a weakness. They were assigned to work outside the main camp perimeter. During a shift at a bakery, they overpowered their guards, cut through the outer fence, and fled into the Polish countryside. The escape was successful, but it came at a cost. The SS executed prisoners in retaliation, a reminder of how every act of resistance in Nazi-occupied Europe carried consequences for others. Once free, Pilecki rejoined the Polish resistance and continued fighting until the war's end. But his ordeal wasn't over. It was about to get worse in ways he never could have anticipated. After the war ended, Poland fell under Soviet control, and the communist government viewed former resistance fighters as threats. Pilecki, who had risked everything to fight fascism, now found himself targeted by a different totalitarian regime. In 1947, Pilecki was arrested by Poland's communist secret police. He was charged with working for Western intelligence, accusations that were largely fabricated. After a show trial on May 25, 1948, Witold Pilecki was executed by firing squad. The man who had voluntarily entered Auschwitz to expose the truth was killed by his own country's government. For decades, his story was suppressed, his name erased from official histories. The communist regime wanted no reminders of Polish heroes who might have divided loyalties. It's one of history's cruelest ironies. The man who risked everything to document genocide was silenced by the very people he'd helped liberate. Only after communism fell in 1989 did Pilecki's true story begin to emerge. Documents were declassified, survivors came forward, and historians could finally piece together the full scope of what he had accomplished. Today, Witold Pilecki is recognized as one of World War II's greatest heroes. His reports from Auschwitz are considered among the most important historical documents of the Holocaust. Museums, schools, and streets bear his name across Poland and beyond. But perhaps his greatest legacy isn't in monuments or memorials, it's in the principle he embodied, that some truths are so important, someone must bear witness, regardless of the personal cost. Pilecki's story reminds us that heroism isn't always about dramatic battlefield victories or grand gestures. Sometimes it's about the quiet decision to document truth when everyone else looks away, to maintain hope in hopeless circumstances, and to believe that bearing witness matters even when the world seems indifferent. In an age of information overload, it's worth remembering that there was a time when getting the truth out required someone willing to walk into hell just to tell the world what they saw there. What aspect of Pilecki's story do you find most remarkable? Or what other unsung heroes from World War II or other conflicts would you like to learn about? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up, it really helps my channel. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss more incredible stories from history here on Hoodie History. And one more thing, if you're interested in shorter stories from history, I publish content frequently on my other channel, Hoodie History Shorts. You can check it out now to discover all kinds of punchy stories from history. There's a link here and in the video description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.